So one of the wonderful things about Oregon is how we work together as community colleges to support one another, to share our resources and do what needs to be done for our communities and our state, and most importantly, our students. And so it seemed most appropriate to organize this day with all of our sister community colleges, because we know that there's a wealth of knowledge embedded in our faculty and staff and in our other institutions. So we're really thrilled that you decided to come. The last 6 years have been pretty interesting for community colleges. Since President Obama announced the American Graduation Initiative, the spotlight has been on us, on community colleges. But this is kind of a double-edged sword, isn't it? It's encouraging to see the focus on the work that we do and the students that we serve. But at the same time, in an era of increased demands for accountability, we see conclusions about how we do our work and our results based on really incomplete data, like iPads. We also see a real lack of understanding of our mission and the many goals that students come to us with, and the lack of understanding about what it really takes to serve the most underrepresented, underprepared, first generation and poorest students in this country. And the multiple goals that all of these students have, and the lack of understanding of what we actually do and the students we serve is really quite startling, and it can lead to really poorly formulated policy and legislation. And that's why conversations like this are so important, because Oregon is small enough that we can actually influence policy and legislation if we work together to think out what the right road is. We also know that in these last 6 years, we have been subject to initiative after initiative, some self-imposed, some mandated, but nevertheless many experiments focusing on improving student outcomes. And all of this has happened in an era of disinvestment. Oregon is 46th in the country for the funding of higher education. So between the efforts to improve and redesign and the disinvestment, our lives have been pretty challenging, right? It's been a tough road for many of us. But fortunately, as community college professionals, we're pretty resilient, and Oregon is a small enough state that we can influence our path forward. We really can work together on behalf of our students. We can learn from the national conversation, and we're so glad that Davis is here to share some of that with us today. But we can also discern through these conversations what will work for our colleges, our students, and our communities. So this is the start of a policy conversation. It's an exploratory conversation, an implementation conversation. So I'm just wondering, where are colleges? How many colleges have already decided that they're going to pursue guided pathways? They're all in and moving. So that's Lynn Benton, right? Okay. And Lynn Benton is part of the AACC Guided Pathways project. Is that the only one, Lynn Benton? How many would say you're kind of well into the conversation and you've either decided you're going to do it or you're almost decided you're going to do it? Anyone kind of deep in the conversation? So who have we got? That's that Chemeketa over there. The kind of, yeah, we think we might, yeah. And Blue Mountain, okay. And Columbia Gorge, Mount Hood, Clackamas, okay. How many are just at the very beginning of the conversation? I put Lane in that category, so probably a lot of hands. Okay, so you can see we're all at different stages in our thinking about this. And again, that's the beauty of Oregon's community colleges. We focus on the unique needs of our communities and at the same time work together to harness our capacity. So we know that to do this work, any work, whether it's guided pathways or anything else, we need more funding. And I am going to officially declare myself on a break, because I just want to remind you that there's the Better Oregon Initiative coming up in November that will make a huge difference to the funding of education in the state of Oregon. And Christina Howard, one of our faculty here at Lane, has information in the lobby which you can access when you're on break from your workday. And she also has signature sheets, because we need to get this on the ballot. And I'm proud to say that Lane's board members have been out gathering signatures for this initiative. So see Christina if you want more information or if you want to sign on to that initiative, which will make a difference. So aside from the funding, we've got to assure that we're doing everything we can to make sure that students are progressing towards their goals, that we're creating learning environments and support services that ensure their success. So clearly we have work to do. But we should do that work bringing our intellect, our academic research, our natural skepticism, our confidence in our collective ability, our discipline, pedagogical and program knowledge, and our eternal optimism in our chosen vocations to serve our students, the poorest and most in need. We play such an important role in transforming lives and communities. Every idea, every proposal, every mandate should be thoroughly vetted to assure that in the end it will provide tangible results for our students, and that's what we're going to be doing today. So I'm totally excited about us coming together to start this discussion. I'm sure we'll do this the Oregon way, and whatever shape or form that takes, I'm confident it will be learning-centered and it will focus on excellence and equity. So, to expand our knowledge and engage our best thinking, it is an honor to introduce our keynote speaker today. Davis Jenkins is a senior research associate at the Community College Research Center at Columbia University. He works with colleges and states to find ways to improve educational and employment outcomes for students, particularly those from disadvantaged backgrounds. His research and thinking have informed the development and spread of innovative approaches to improving student outcomes, including career pathways, adult technical bridge programs such as Washington State's iBest, and guided pathways to success. Together with his co-authors, he is the author of the book Redesigning America's Community Colleges, which was published last year. And he's going to tell you about the book, so I'm not going to, I think most of us have read it, but I'm not going to give it away. He holds a PhD in public policy analysis from Carnegie Mellon University and a BA from Princeton University. It's a privilege for me to be welcoming Davis to the state of Oregon and Lane Community College. Let's give him a warm welcome.
Thank you very much. Damn, I didn't know there were this many people in the whole state of Oregon. Who's teaching your classes, guys? It's an honor to be here. The best part of my job, you know, all this craziness, I was going to say a bad word, but my mom might be streaming on this, Mom, sorry. The craziness nationally, all this discussion about how government doesn't work, and, you know, I say come to a community college, you know, any community college, because this is, you guys are one of our great, if not our greatest, democratic institutions. So it's an honor to be here, and I love coming to colleges and talking with folks, whether it's formally or informally as part of our research. And I love coming to Oregon, CCAM, and we've, you know, in the past we've done stuff around career pathways with Nan Poppy and other folks, and this is essentially the similar idea, but maybe just looking at things a little bit more broadly. So thank you for inviting me here. I'm really touched to be here. So we do like to talk to students. We do a lot of focus groups and surveys with students to understand what's behind the numbers that we also crunch. And when we talk to students, in particular new students who are considering coming to college, community colleges, these are the kinds of things they say they want to know. What are my career options? You don't have to write this down. We'll share this around. What are the educational paths to those careers? Okay, they probably don't say paths, but I have to say it in every other sentence, so, you know. But, you know, like, how do I get there? You know, how do I get to these career options? What will I need to take? How long will it take? And how much will it cost? And they're increasingly asking, how long will it take? And how much not will it cost just this semester, but to get the whole thing done? How much financial aid can I get? And will my credits transfer? We just put out a report on transfer that's gotten huge local coverage because I think this is an issue that students and people read. This wasn't the higher ed press. This was people all over, and we can talk about that. I have some of the numbers. So when we talk to students who've come to college and have, you know, maybe in their first term or their second term, this is how they describe their experience in trying to find answers to these questions. They're lost. In fact, the first touch that most students have with your campuses is your website. So we've actually done, I would challenge you, your faculty, your staff, we've done activity-based focus groups with students where we pay them target gift cards to try to answer these questions on your websites and your advising materials. They can't do it. We've done this with faculty. At Miami-Dade College, faculty were given a transcript of a student and said that this student wanted to transfer to Florida International, which is right across the street, or where most of their students who transfer go. And what does a student need to take to transfer with junior standing most efficiently? They took out the bio faculty, but the 26 other faculty from the other disciplines of the college couldn't figure it out. 2 hours. They were trying to, search for this stuff. One of them said, I think I'll recommend they major in English because I can figure that out. So, but most students come thinking they want a bachelor's degree because that's what, society has told them, their counselors and everything. So they have no idea what that means. They also don't know, the many other credentials that have labor market value. They know none of this stuff. But they want a bachelor's degree, so they come in and they come to meet with the advisor for their 50 minutes to try to schedule the courses for their first term, and the advisor says, okay, you want to transfer, but you don't know what you want to major in or even what field you're interested in. You should get your gen eds out of the way because that will give you your most flexibility. And here they are. What is letters? Is that like mail carrying or something? So okay, in fairness, this is not from an Oregon community college. I'm sure Oregon's information is much better. Okay, the numbers are okay. Looks like computer code or something. So the student's like, oh, and by the way, based on this test that you took, that by the test takers' scientifically indefensible validity studies has a correlation with faculty judgment of 0.15, which is low. You're going to have to take the 2 courses you hated most in high school, algebra and college composition. And so this is from my colleague Tom Bailey, the research that he did, the levels of 63,000 Achieving the Dream students who started 3 levels below or more, 11% get out in 3 years to take and pass college math. English, it's a lot better, 29%. So in effect, we're saying, it's going to be several terms before you can read Dante's Inferno, but you'll be able to experience the circles of hell right away through Dev Ed. I know that's harsh, but I used a literary allusion. I'm not knocking Dev Ed people and the work behind it. And in fact, the work has led to, this is the case even though nationally, and in places in Oregon, I'm sure, there are efforts like Statway, you've probably heard about, an integrated year-long statistics-based pathway. This is a key issue that integrates modern pedagogy, productive persistence, and what we know about learning, and has produced dramatic results. The orange is the prerequisite, the gates of hell, and the green is the percentage of students who take and pass in 1 year, I think this is, college level math. And there's differences by race, which are big issues, but still, nevertheless, even among African Americans, huge differences. And so by the traditional, sequential model, in 1 year, across the path of their network of colleges that participate in this, 6% take and pass college math. 2 years, it's 15%. Under Statway, it's half. Okay? So these are, so you get triple the success rate in half the time. This is something we got to look at given the time constraints on our students. And so this work is happening nationally. This is, so in 2 falls ago, in the 2014, Tennessee did a very large-scale pilot across their 13 institutions of what they call Corequisite Education. We like to call it integrating academic support with the college level course, but they called it CoRec for short. And this is the results they got by math, by ACT score. So the blue was the percentage of students who took and passed college math in 1 year, even for ACT scores of 14, compared to 1 term, 30% of those students. And there is a correlation, but still, again, there's a huge, even at the low end of the ACT scores, overall 63% passed college math in 1 term versus 12% passing in 1 year. Here are the results for English, which were even more astounding. So they took this and said, we're going to go all in. These Tennesseans, they're like you guys. They seem to be descended from Scandinavians like you. They have all this consensual stuff that, like, get it done. But that's what it takes, seriously. But once they decide, they're like, we're all in. We volunteer. That's the volunteer state. So this is the results of this fall's, and this is among the 13 colleges. And you see there is a range, but this is the rate at which students take and pass college level math. Now, to their credit, they are not declaring victory. Some groups like Complete College America are saying, we found the silver bullet, or Tennessee has. They're not declaring victory. There's a big range among the colleges, and we're studying this, and there's a big variation on how they're doing it. And there are probably many different ways to do this CoRec effectively for different students, different, parts of the state. So they're working on this. There are also many students who aren't passing, So what to do with those students? And probably there's a substantial proportion they know and admit for whom this isn't going to work. But, still, we get these results. And so this really, what this I think calls into question is not that we found the silver bullet. And again, I commend our colleagues from Tennessee. They're really working on figuring out how to do this even better for all students. But that this prerequisite system that's focused on 2 courses, even though I've done work showing that other courses, Bio 101, Psych 101, Accounting 101, Econ 101, Anatomy and Physiology 101 are every bit as important as math and English, as important as they are for success. One reason they've been able to do this at scale in Tennessee, and I think one thing that's behind this and we're looking at, is they've shifted many students from an algebra track to a statistics track. And you see that with Statway as well. So in some ways it's comparing apples and oranges, but the reason they were able to do that is they've developed pathways and agreed across the state, faculty and others, on what math should be for what program. So people have had trouble scaling this accelerated dev ed, in part because it's not tied to, they're relying on the English and math faculty to do it, and they can't do it alone. So when we talk to students who have, persisted, and God love them, they keep coming back, they want to know, how far along am I toward completing my program? Am I on schedule? How much more will I have to pay? What will I need to take next term, and what will my schedule be? My mom just, she needs care now, and this is a big hit financially on our family. So I need to know, first of all, how much it's going to cost, but when I can fit in my elder care, my child care, my job, I need to have a good sense of when that's going to be. What if I want to change programs? And how can I get work experience in my field of interest? So again, when we talk to students, and one of the things we do that is effective is do an accounting right now of what program students are in your institution, and who owns those students, who's responsible for them, how far are they along. Lorain County Community College, I'll show you an example from them in a minute, did a study looking at they looked at their graduates in a particular year and found that 60% of them graduated in a field that was different from the most recently recorded field for that student in the student information system. So in other words, they had no idea where students were. And when we've looked at student pathways, this is from a study Peter Crosta did, looking at the pathways of students in a particular state, students who not Oregon, but another state. And so these are the semesters, 18 semesters here, each column. And imagine each student is a row. So the ugly orange color is full-time enrollment. So this is what's in the catalog, fall, spring, fall, spring. And we actually find that less than 3% of students follow this. If you add blue, part-time in the summer, you know, you bump it up to about 4% So this is what's in the catalog. This is why we call ourselves two-year institutions. And this is the actual pattern of enrollment. Now you say, so the blue is part-time, the ugly orange mustard color is full-time. Where there's white space, that means the students dropped out. And you say, well, they've dropped out, but they've transferred. The red dots are the first time they transfer to a university. So these students down here are attending part-time in the first term, and then almost 6 years later, they end up at a university. And then for the students who persist, there's, you know, the enrollment patterns, as you know, are very chaotic. Full-time to part-time to stop out this semester. It's incredibly chaotic. And we find this matters mightily. And it matters especially at the front end. Work I've done, work Paul Attewell has done, suggests the momentum. Getting college courses, credits, but especially getting the right credits early on in the first year matters mightily for students, and this is true across income groups. So, and yet we lose students, 40% in this state, 42% are gone after a term or two, and when I mean gone, that means they haven't transferred anywhere, including a four-year institution. So Georgia State University, a four-year institution, but nevertheless an open access institution or broad access institution. This is not Georgia Tech. This is the biggest improvement story in higher education in 20 years, in the last 20 years. Majority minority, inner city Atlanta, majority Pell student population that, you know, 10 years ago had a completion rate in the 6-year completion rate in the low 30%. And they were looking at their data and looked at, like we do sometimes, the retention from the first year to the next. What percentage of students are showing up the second fall? And they notice, look, it's first of all, it's pretty stable across years. We find this with when we look at community colleges as well. And so if 80% of students are coming, how come only 30, you know, for the second term, the sophomore year, how come only, you know, 30% are graduating in 6 years? And then they ask the question, what percentage of students are not only coming back, but coming back with sophomore standing? So this was sobering to them. Students are coming back, but they're not in sophomore standing. They're not on path. And so they've done a lot of work with pathways, but especially doing very intrusive, using technology, but using technology to bring to bear the human, both in teaching and student support to help students. They have like over 100, I don't know how they deal with it. It's the only place where I've seen early alert systems really work at scale. So they work to get, the goal is not just to have students come back, but to come back with sophomore standing, and to come back, for the student to come back with sophomore standing, you got to sort of know what at least general program they're in. So these, you know, this work and this work in the field and the research that we've done with community colleges, especially over the past, as Mary was suggesting, over the past 10, 15 years, there's been huge ferment in community colleges. You guys are crazy. You know, the less money you get, the harder you work and the more you try, but God love you. But despite all the incredibly well-intentioned effort and, you know, by faculty, advisors, and administrators, you know, we saw it working, and we were part of these efforts. So, you know, we saw some small gains for students, relatively small number of students from these innovations, but generally they would taper off. And so, you know, we asked ourselves the question, I mean, this is not for lack of effort and commitment to student success. So this caused us to step back and to take a look at the community college and how colleges are organized for teaching and learning more generally and to support students. And basically we came to the conclusion that community colleges are incredibly well designed to do what we as a society asked you guys to do in the 60s and 70s and 80s when, you know, in 50s, I guess it started, came to the fore, which is to provide very low-cost access to higher education, very low-cost access. So this has led to, you know, the kind of, that gen ed thing I think is an effort to provide broad access, lots of choice for students. And you know, you can attend, you can enroll in the shower, you can, you know, take courses at all time. You are incredibly accessible. But if the focus now and the need on the part of our students because of economic, political issues, state disinvestment and the like, as students pay more of their, families pay more of their money for higher education, and given that family incomes are flat, they're going to need a return on their investment, and they're going to need it quickly. So these pressures, and I don't even mention financial aid, this is, I think, the thing that most immediately is driving this, financial aid. You know, the fact that the feds are only paying for courses in a student's program of study, and they're being how many financial aid people are here? Okay. Oh, they have a meeting today. Okay, they're talking about you guys, which is how can we make sure people are in their program of study. So, but this kind of organization, which we call the Cafeteria College, which is a caricature, you know, broad choice, is not necessarily well designed to help students choose a program of study, get on it, and get out with things of value. The paths to student goals are unclear, as you can see by your website, and if your website's good, I want to see it. If you can answer those questions from your website. The intake system sorts students into a dev ed track rather than building their skills for college. And even if that's wrong, even if dev ed works, it doesn't expose students to the opportunities. And we know from talking to students in general, it's very discouraging and can be demoralizing for students, despite the dedication of the folks who are teaching it. And, you know, students' progress is not monitored, and if the college doesn't know where the student is, it's likely the student doesn't know. And this is really important. If students are driving up, you know, down I-5 and cobbling together at different community colleges that gen ed package that we saw, they're not putting together a coherent set of skills, of skills and knowledge. And I'm thinking, and especially here, I'm not talking about occupational skills, although that's an issue. I'm talking about the gen ed skills, those skills that we saw, the learning outcomes that we know are critical, even if all you cared about, which we definitely don't, is employment. We know that employers are hiring based on those kind of criteria, critical thinking, engaging, innovating, and the like, working in teams, and the like. But if we're just having students make their own plan, it's not likely that they're going to come up with, you know, a solid, coherent education. If they would, they could just take, you know, MOOCs and stuff. We know that doesn't work. So this model leads to a lot of churning. That is, students coming on but then leaving. Students transfer, but they transfer early. I have, you know, Oregon data. About a third of students nationally get an associate degree before they transfer. In Oregon, it's well below the national average. The completion rates are down. Students who get associate degrees and degrees, we find, in many cases, have to take excess credits. In that state we looked at, I think the average is in the high 70s of college credit courses. Forget about the developmental credits. Time to degree is increasing, and students don't got time. And this skill issue, which is really maybe, you know, ultimately the most fundamental, are students building skills across the curriculum that will enable them to transfer and be a junior standing in a particular major, or be able to be productive employee workers, and for us to be productive, engaged citizens. So this has led, you know, folks nationally in 2- and 4-year institutions to rethink this model of low-cost access. And what folks are coming to is a model where the maps to student end goals are clear, where end goals are careers and the education leading to the careers. Again, I'm talking about the student's goals. We have goals to prepare students, not just for employment and not just for transfer, but to prepare them broadly educated. But I'm telling you, the students looking for careers, and so we got to package that other stuff into their learning for careers and for transfer. The intake system is redesigned as an on-ramp to a program of study, which means that rather than deciding whether students are not college ready or college ready, I'm going to tell you right now, you can save your money. They are not ready. They are not ready. They're not ready academically, but maybe just as importantly, they don't have a plan, and they need opportunity to explore. And we're going to talk about this exploration piece because it's brought up. I'm sure it'll be brought up. So on-ramp to a program of study is enabling students rather quickly, but not too quickly, to explore and at least pick a broad path and to take and pass the gatekeeper courses in those areas at a level that is needed to get this momentum going that I talked about. Students' progress is closely tracked and monitored with the goal of what's most important is to get the human intervention, but the technology and the organizing things differently can help us maximize the human contact in institutions like yours, which are highly under-resourced. And learning outcomes and assessments are aligned across programs of study. So the theory, and I'm going to be straight with you, Lynn Benton, those people are especially crazy. They're part of a national effort, and all these efforts I'm going to show you are really works in progress. I'm not going to lie to you. This is not an answer. This is a hypothesis that people are working on. But the hypothesis is, and we have seen, preliminary results, and there are some examples which I'll show you, lower churning, more likely for students to get associate degrees and be able to transfer with junior standing in a major, which is different than being able to transfer with 60 credits, as you know. Completion up, excess credits down, time to degree down, and very importantly, building a coherent set of skills and competencies across the curriculum, not just vocational skills, but most importantly, these broad, what we often call gen ed learning outcomes, which are so important for students' lives in all the dimensions of their work. So I'm going to just give you some examples of what this looks like from different sectors. This actually was pioneered, these ideas by four-year institutions. Florida State and University of Florida actually began it. And then Georgia State, I mentioned. Another one is Arizona State University. In most community colleges, and I've looked at some of it, when you type academic programs at Lane Community College, you get an alphabetical list of programs. Right? I think I did that, yeah. So when you type academic programs at Arizona State University, they have 300 of them, by the way, over 300 majors. This is what you get. You get these pictures, and they have careers and people on them, and they have things like cool majors. So let's look at cool majors. Number one cool major is accountancy. Who's an accountant here? You are cool. Woo! Applied computing, applied science. My theory is these are cool because these people make enough money to afford to be cool. So these are all the tech areas. Okay, so let's go down on that cool, sexy accountancy thing. So this is the accountancy, so you went from all their programs to the cool programs to their accountancy BS. Again, this is a university. I understand this is selective. So it describes the program. This is I'm just scrolling down the program, and look, you have this YouTube of these cool, sexy people. Is this the kind of people you hang out with? And then they do click analysis, and students look at two things in particular. Second language requirement, no, thank God. Math program intensity, moderate. Man, I'd hate to see what high intensity is. And then when you scroll down, you get other admissions requirements beyond ASUs. And then, again, same page, I'll talk about these transfer agreements. I'll talk about these in a minute and show you what those are. And then at the bottom of the page, but again, the same page, you get the careers. So you had this sexy career YouTube thing at the top, At the bottom of the page, you have the careers, and you can click down and find out what the sexy, cool thing, why do I say cool is nuts? Anyhow. Employment trends. And, you can do a lot with this. You can have YouTubes of students who graduated, YouTubes of your interviews with your CFOs. I'd love to see that film. CFOs, so you could do a lot of this stuff. So when you go to the top of that page, it says major map. And again, that same page, and this is drilling down. This is an 8-term full program map of the default for this program, BS in Accountancy. And you'll see these diamond courses. Those are critical courses. Those are courses that they know statistically that if you don't get a C at least in CIS 105, you're not going to finish this degree. They know this from past experience, and they're not going to let you proceed with this. This would be like us saying if a student doesn't get the requisite grade in Bio 101 or in Anatomy and Physiology to get into the nursing program, and we can calculate with your IR folks what that grade is that they're going to need, then we don't let them proceed. But we don't like say, see ya. We say, there are other things in healthcare besides nursing, including non-clinical as well as clinical. Let's find out what you're good at. And let's figure out there are other things in life besides just being a nurse where you can be productive and make money and be satisfied. And so what are you good at? What turns you on? That's what's going to get you ahead, making that conversation. But it's these sort of bureaucratic rules that sort of lead to that conversation. So, of course, most students coming in even to Arizona State have no idea what they're going to major in. So if you don't know, you're required to enter one of 6 or 7, they look like more, but they're essentially 6 or 7 exploratory majors. So business, education, engineering, arts and humanities, social and behavioral sciences. These are the broad fields, sometimes we call them in the book meta majors, which is a bad name, but I like exploratory majors. Because the research, there's shockingly little research on how students choose careers and majors, but the research that's been done, the best research, actually it's been mostly done in Europe, suggests that it is a learning process, as doesn't surprise you. You can't just decide on a career, by looking at some website. I don't want to overemphasize the website, or even going to the career center. It's a process of saying, do I fit here? Am I part of this culture? And this is important. So these are required, and they're 2 or 3 terms, and they have required workshops developed by developmental psychologists to enable students to explore, and taught by advisors or people who are trained in this, their personal career and academic interests, and with the view of deciding, am I going to continue on and major in social behavioral sciences, and if so, what major? Or am I going to switch? And it makes very clear where you start getting locked in. Where, if I am in business exploratory, do my credits no longer transfer to another exploratory area? This is actually this is using behavioral psychology, where if you have a hugely complex choice set like 300 majors, you break them, you force a decision, but among 6 or 7 sets of them. And by the way, behavioral psychologists say people like choice, but how many choices do you think they like? After what number do you think it is?
6.
Closer, 6 or 7. So 6 or 7, and then you look at our web pages, we got all these in alphabetical order, no pictures. Who knows what all this stuff means? So once you know students on a pathway, you can do a lot of analytics. And one of the analytics they've done is to see whether students are on path. And you can see when they started this out, 2007, many students were not on track. They weren't on track to come back as sophomores and junior standing like Georgia State did. But they've worked on that through various means. And so that now students are on track, and they can tell actually ahead of time, based on students' performance, how well they're going to do in the future and where they need to have support. And they've seen increased retention, although they have also, I would say, become more selective during that time. What's critical, though, for us is that they have built these over 160 of these 300 majors pathways down into the community colleges. So this is the web page of a Glendale Community College student, which is in the Maricopa system, and they're a Glendale Community College students, but they have this ASU website with their picture of their ASU advisor, and this is a thing on the business school and sexy careers in accounting, and this is YouTube's on how students paid for college, and it tells them exactly how far along, translated into the community college's course numbers, which are different than ASU's, how far they are along, and if they pass this, they transfer with junior standing in a major, and the folks at ASU, like the Dean of Business, can look at this and see how many students are coming through the pipeline. They've built this with all the community colleges in Arizona and some in California because the CSUs are tapped out. They're sucking students out of California because the California system, our free community college system, is tapped out. And so this year, past year, they're really focused on starting in the high schools. And this is an app which, if you don't look at it now unless you use earbuds, but look up ASU Me3. And what this is, it runs students through a series of, this is like my daughter, she always does this. Would you rather, although it's usually about how would you rather die? Would you rather die by electrocution or surfing on a banana peel and breaking your head? So would you rather work with people or dolphins? It asks you, and then after these questions, it gives you 3 career areas based on that, and under each 3 majors. And then you winnow it down further, and ultimately it takes you to those ASU program map pages and shows you, okay, if you want to go through the community college, you do this. But most importantly, it tells the student what, if they're interested in becoming a cool accountant, or those people, CSI, the sexy CSI people on TV, by the way, they have PhDs in biochemistry. This is what you need to be taking in 9th grade, in 10th grade, 11th and 12th. And yes, there are huge equity issues here, but at least we know where students need to be. Right now we have, the minority and the low-income students just get sorted out through this process that seems fair, but that isn't. And students generally, whether they're poor or not, they don't see a pathway. This at least gets them a pathway and begins the exploration process. So this isn't the German system. We're not talking about students choosing a major in high school or even in the first year of community college, but we are forcing them to explore and giving them, maps on how you could get the hell from where you are to someplace else. So I'll show you some community college examples. City College of Chicago, 7 separately accredited institutions, one of the lowest performing institutions in the country. We actually pioneered the work in the 90s that led to iBest and that kind of thing in Chicago, so there are a lot of good people there. The leadership, not so good. So when he was about to retire, Mayor Daley was frustrated by this, and he made a very controversial decision, which is still controversial, to appoint a woman, Cheryl Hyman, who grew up on the west side, went to Olive Harvey College in the far south side, and got an associate degree there, transferred to Illinois Institute of Technology, which is a prestige technology university, got a degree in computer science, had a big career in industry. And it was controversial because she's not an educator and she's very businesslike. But her personal story was like, when she saw the numbers of what was happening to students like her, she says, we can't do this. So she has focused in the first 4 years on what she calls relevancy. I call it alignment, but it's basically every program has to clearly lead to employment and or further education, specific paths. And so they've worked with employers and further and four-year institutions, and they're even more radically making each of these centers of excellence. So Olive Harvey is on the south side. It's in a ghetto, but around it, within 5 miles, is one of the greatest concentrations of logistics commerce in the country, if not the world. They have a port. They have 2 airports, 3 airports. They have shipping and rail. I mean, this is Chicago. So they've become a transportation logistics center. So doing this, they succeeded in doubling the completion rates, dramatically improving, almost doubling the associate degrees and certificates, and very importantly, getting employers and four-year institutions involved. They've doubled it from 7% to 14%, their three-year IPEDS rate. They want to do better than that. They want to be at 25%, which is where Miami-Dade is, the best among the large urban institutions. So starting fall of 2014, they started to require students from the start to enter in one of these broad focus areas, like the ASU exploratory majors. And these are geared toward growth areas they now call liberal arts, arts and humanities. So it's based on the vibrant arts and humanities culture and business within Chicago. And so students are required, and when you get accepted from the City College of Chicago, you not only get an acceptance letter, you get an acceptance or a letter from the Dean of Business at Harold Washington College saying, you know, you should please come to our business student orientation. And so you're with other students who checked off business on the application. That doesn't mean they knew what the hell it is. But you go to the orientation, you go to the advisor, and they ask you, well, you said you wanted business. And I'm like, well, I don't even remember that. But maybe the most important thing is you're with other students who also said they wanted business, and you're talking to them. And rather than in a commuter school, just being with a whole bunch of students sort of in the gen ed, dev ed circle of hell thing. And so this is from their catalog, it's similar on the website, but just to give you a sense, brief program overview, career options. Again, students are looking at careers. What specific programs, recommended transfer options for this, these are their business programs and there's information on them because of course the four-year institutions vary in their requirements. And you know, sample courses, you know, intro to statistics. I thought it was just about making money business. I didn't know you had to take math. So, you know, students don't know. They don't know anything. So this, you know, again, this isn't going to teach them that, but organizing the programs in these ways has a big effect. And creating a default pathway for students like ASU. It's a default because students can change it, but to change it, they got to see an advisor. And the advisor will say, well, you can take this course, Davis, but financial aid won't pay for it. Or you can take this course, but University of Illinois Chicago is not going to accept it for junior standing in business. And I'm an adult, and if I want to take that welding course, damn it, I'll take it and pay for it myself. But at least I need to understand what the implications are. Here's another example from Broward College. They're moving in this direction because the two institutions they feed, the 4 years, Florida International and Florida Atlantic. Florida International is one of these rising up and coming regional institutions that's becoming a powerhouse like University of Central Florida. They're requiring students from the start to enter a focus area. So Miami-Dade, or Broward College, which like Miami-Dade feeds FIU and FAU, felt that they needed to do the same thing for their students. So they organized all their programs in this octagon. So, and this is how their catalog and website is being reorganized. Their catalog is reorganized. They're working on the website. So these are their STEM programs. These are their majors. And these are jobs with medium salaries in these areas. So again, you see all of their programs. And then if you click down in business, this is from their catalog. I really like this. This shows all the degrees in business. Students don't know. They know about bachelor's degrees, even though they don't know what that is. They may know what an associate degree is. But look at all these different options. In Florida, they offer their own bachelor's degrees, but they also have the transfer degrees. And it provides career information. Again, you know, just putting this all in one place, and you know, most students have no idea about certificates and certifications and the value they have. So, and this is their stack of courses for this particular course program, Associate of Science in Accounting Technology. And so embedded in this are courses that lead to industry and technical certification. So when a student takes, you know, Principles Accounting 1 and Income Tax 1, we can send them an email saying, you know what, you've passed these two courses. You can go at our testing center, take a certification course that will actually enable you to get a job or move up in these kind of jobs with employers in the Eugene area. And but if you know you're this far away from an associate degree, and that will get you these kind of jobs. So we're keeping students on track toward the degree, but giving them intermediate, the real stackable credentials. on the side. And this, again, can be true for transfer programs as well, for theater programs. I forget which, I think it was Queensborough was embedding project management certifications, because if you're going to be in theater, you got to figure out how to manage projects. So, you know, and it doesn't have to be the certifications. It can be embedded, projects and other things, that are maybe of a more academic nature. And so they have all this information on particular jobs associated with different degrees and certifications. So I mentioned Lorain County Community College, Northeast Ohio. I mentioned that they looked at their graduates and 60% were in different programs. Ohio just implemented performance funding. Mary and I love performance funding. One of the big things is performance funding, it doesn't work the way people says it, but it does send a message. And so one of the measures in Ohio Community College performance funding is excess credits, and Lorain leads or lags the state in excess credits. They were finding students earning 80, 90 credits before they got an associate degree, not even counting Dev Ed. So they worked with the Northeast Ohio economic development areas to identify these 12 growth areas in the Northeast Ohio region. And this is still under development. When you look at Lorain County, some of you have, it's an alphabetical listing. It's a lot worse than Lane's site, I'll tell you. I mean, it's so when you click down in one of these, say healthcare, you get all of their healthcare programs. Students only know nursing, but what's the sports and fitness? What's respiratory? What are all these others? These are all their programs. Again, you know, this isn't the web. This is not about the website, but it's how we organize these programs. And then you click down one more there, nursing. It's not just the RN. It's paramedic to RN. What's that? Practical nursing. And there are university partnerships in bachelor's and master's. I'll talk about those in a second. And then you drill down to the program level, associate degree in nursing, career information, curriculum guide. That's the map, the default map. Course descriptions, admissions requirements, bam, apply. And they're going to do videos, YouTube-like videos of students who, graduated from associate degree in nursing, or, you guys should form study groups in anatomy and physiology, or this is, what this program has mean to me. So in 3 clicks from all of their programs, which are couched in terms of careers in Northeast Ohio, to all their healthcare programs, all their nursing programs, and all their associate degree in nursing programs. Again, and these programs mapped out with defaults. So Lorain has a very robust dual enrollment program, high school dual enrollment program, and a very robust university partnership program. But they were finding that most of the students, less than 1 in 5, were coming on from the dual enrollment to go to the college before they went to the university. So this, I think it was this past fall, they started sending out to all parents and guidance counselors and principals of dual enrollment students this thing, which says that if you want to get a BS in education from Ashland University, which trains many of the teachers in Northeast Ohio, a well-regarded program, you could go there directly and spend almost $160,000 with room and board, or you could take dual enrollment, come through the associate degree, and through our university partnership, pay $32,000 for a savings of 80%. And these are not Mickey Mouse programs. BS in Sports Studies at Akron is a nationally ranked program, as is Hiram College's. It's a specialized college. Cleveland State University, BA in Psychology, feeds master's programs. So this is, when we talk about equity, what I want to see is low-income and minority students in these programs, on these paths, starting in high school, paid for by the taxpayer at least part. So this isn't, channeling students into cosmetology. These are channeling students into the future of this region, okay? And yes, community colleges have the stigma there just like you, but I'm sorry, even middle and upper middle class, when they see these numbers, you can get this same bachelor's degree. This is not some crappy, degree. This is the real thing for 80% less. Even middle class families who in the past would have been snobby about community colleges, they're going to think twice. So a big part of this, I'm almost done, is rethinking the intake system. And this is maybe the biggest thing, because we don't have enough advisors, and it's, the students are just coming in, and the students who need it the most guidance come in at the last minute, and sometimes even after the term has started. So it's really chaos. So Valencia has been working on how to do this on a very massive scale. And anyone who thinks Valencia has a lot of resources, I think, should look at the funding in Florida, which has been cut from 56%, I think 57% state funding to 42% in 5 years in a state where there's no local tax-based funding. But nevertheless, and I don't want to be unclear, this takes money. So they've created this new front end that includes things like required workshops that students have to go to. They've hired these students just out of college, not as formal advisors. They're saying, this is a 2-year position for you right out of college. They're hiring students who are good at networking and know how to use, is Tumblr, or is that some porn site? I don't even know. That shows you how much I know. Who knows how to use these sites, who knows how to use these porn sites, unlike me, with the goal of networking so they get students into these programs of study, which are broad program fields that lead to programs that they've mapped out with University of Central Florida in their Direct Connect program. So it's this trying to do with very little money, this exploration, which involves a plan with required advising, extended orientation to college. It's not just 1 or 2 days, it's the entire first year. Co-curricular activities in programs of study. So, let's start having students who are interested in arts and humanities. Let's take them to plays and start getting them involved in the life of arts and humanities. And with the goal of helping students after 18 credits get into at least a broad program of study. Now, only Valencia can have 6 Ps but these actually make sense. This is the learning outcomes of that process. Purpose. They want students to have a purpose statement. Pathway. They want to choose a program of study aligned with their goals. It's maybe not necessarily a major, but at least a broad program. They have to have a plan on how they're going to get there. Students need to have college success skills, and that's part of the co-curricular work they're doing. And this is really key. This is really key. This all sounds very bureaucratic, but what this is attempted to do is to, with very little resources, optimize the human connection, using structure and technology to optimize that connection with the advisor, so that the connection with the advisor is not scheduling your first term courses, it's talking about what do you want to do. And it's helping get students, when they're interested in an area, to the faculty in education, if I'm interested in teaching, because those are the people who have the connections that we need. And place. People will demonstrate an awareness of where their support systems are. So all of these are just giving you examples of what this looks like. This is not one way to do this, as you can see. But in general, the general ideas are we're mapping paths to student end goals with a strong focus on career and further education, especially the bachelor's degree. That's not the only goal for us, but that's what students are looking for. Help students get on the path, not a trivial matter. Keep students on the path by tracking their progress and intervening when they start straying off paths, or if they need to switch to another path. That's really crucial. Ensure, and very importantly, ensure students are learning across the pathway. One of the reasons Miami-Dade got into this, besides the fact that Florida International did, is because they had done incredibly hard work in identifying and assessing their 10 student learning outcomes, their gen ed outcomes. But even the faculty were saying, well, we're not clear where these are being taught in the curriculum. So in their maps that they've put out, very importantly, they're indicating where these 10 competencies, their gen ed competencies, are being taught in the curriculum. Who's assessing them? And frankly, I think the next stage for this work, and we're beginning to see is the potential to have individual student learning portfolios of competencies, so that I have, if I'm a student, I not only have a transcript, but I have a portfolio of competencies. But you can't do that. It's very hard to do that unless you have the program map. So the program map becomes a frame of which to have conversations among faculty and others about how to improve teaching and learning. Because ultimately, if you put all these pathways in place and all this stuff and the website looks great, and I'm not insulting your website, if the learning and teaching are not rich, you haven't done nothing. So that's it. Have I pissed off enough people? That's what I want to know. That's why you bring a guy from New York, you know?
So Davis has offered to take some questions, and Beth and Russ are going to be wandering, so just put up your hand.
Or comments, rebuttals.
Should we make, oh yeah, Russ, is your microphone working?
Yes.
Good. Okay, we're good.
I'm curious, given that we're on the quarter system, whether you think the quarter system gives students too many options to step away from their learning?
I actually think the quarter system is educationally potentially better. You know, there's more and more research suggests that, you know, concentrating learning in a smaller number of subjects over a shorter period makes sense. It gives them more options to leave. And this is one issue I didn't talk about was scheduling and the like, but you know, I think with the quarter system, in a way, it's a little bit easier maybe to your folks, friends in Washington, I've heard, I've read, might have done this, like to make that fourth quarter into the summer so that it's still Pell eligible, you know. Summer learning is critical. There is irrefutable research that students learn or lose in the so-called summer melt. It's done with high school students. But students lose stuff, lose that continuity. And so the continuity in Peter Cross's chart is not just about the continuity of retention, it's about the continuity of learning. So I don't think it has to be. And I sure as hell wouldn't move to a semester system because you'll spend 2 years, you know. It can be done in the quarter system just as well. And I think maybe in some ways more educationally rich. Is that, what do you think? You don't know. You're skeptical. Okay, she's smiling. That means she doesn't buy it.
Perhaps you could identify who you are and where you're from.
My name is Rosie Pryor. I'm on the Lane Community College Board of Education. Thank you for being here today. I've really, really learned a lot. I'm right here.
Okay.
Thank you. My question has to do with the key role that advisors and advising plays in this paradigm.
Yeah.
And I realize that there's more than one way to do advising.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if your research has revealed that there's a preferred option. I know that in some cases faculty do the advising, in other cases a sort of a separate group of experts who are not necessarily faculty, but who are expert at what they do in terms of advising, do it, but perhaps there might be a disconnect between the discipline and the advice. So what does your research reveal about?
Well, we're trying to do research on this because people don't really know, but the experience suggests that, like you said, there are many different ways to do this. And I showed Valencia. I could show you other different ways. I could show you examples where they have faculty advising. But we know, what I was trying to show with the Valencia case and what they've done is that there's certain, you want to set learning, if the exploring a program of study, an academic and career program study is a learning process, you have to figure out with your resources you got, which are too little, including and especially advisors, how to do this. And it's going to differ for different populations. So you have your new students coming in who are maybe younger, they don't know nothing. And so you have to have different things for them. You have adults coming in, they need to get a certificate in, you know, and they need to get out. So you're like, you get them through. And then you extend it down into the schools. But in each case, you have these goals, which are not only learning goals for the student, but sort of progress goals for the college, the student has to choose a program of study and decide, at least I'm going to go in this broad area, and they have to take and pass as soon as possible the gatekeeper courses to those areas. So if they're interested in social behavioral sciences, they got to do Psych 101, Psych 102, whatever the courses are, as well as other, the liberal arts courses and others. And then, very critically, there needs to be a handoff, and in many cases it's not a complete handoff, to the faculty. My goal in this, it sounds very bureaucratic and all this pathways, and these careers are changing all the time. This is not the German system. My goal, honestly, is to get more students into 200 level courses. Why? Because those are the courses that are more interesting, where a faculty member says, you know what, you're good at this. I have a colleague, and she's dean of business at the university. You should go talk to her. Or I have a buddy who has a firm, and he's looking to an internship in marketing. You should go talk to them. That, Vince Tinto, we don't need all CCRC's research. It's all about engagement, especially with the faculty member, as well as advisors. It's the human touch, but how to do this in a low resource environment where faculty teaching 5 courses and you got 1 advisor for. So there are different ways to do this. I will say that I'm very struck by either in faculty advising. So you have this front end advising, and I love Valencia's idea of hiring these young people who know how to network and telling them this is not a career path. You may want to get a master's in advising, and that's fine, or you may want to go into business or go to whatever. But your job is to help network with your peers, especially the younger knuckleheads who are living in their parents' basement, and they're there because their parents told them, which isn't a good motivation. You know what I'm saying? So what they've done is to lay this out. I think what you need to do is lay this out, and given your culture, given your structure, given your resources, figure out how to do it. I know what I was saying is that they're embedding advisors, some people, in the program areas so that they only need to know the business stream. They only need to, so rather than they need to know everything. That's the problem. Advisors can't know everything. We saw there are thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of options, even for Lane Community College, probably thousands of options if you include transfer. But it's getting students on those paths. So the point is, there are these key junctures that we can talk about. They're the key learning outcomes for students. The question is, how do we use our extremely limited resources, really criminally low in resources, to help students get to these milestones and maximize the human contact, especially with faculty, with people at universities in employment, because people are get ahead with networking, and the poor students we serve, they don't have networks. So as important as what we're teaching them in the classroom, maybe even just as important is helping them get these networks. But they're not going to get them in Dev Ed or in Psych 101. They're going to get it once they start going to Psych 201 or the 200 level courses. Anyhow, geez, you get me going.
This is a question, and it's I would imagine that with this approach, one criticism could be that if students are gravitating toward what they believe they have an interest in, this is going to perpetuate some of the difficulties we have in expanding the number of students who go into STEM. And I realize this is not the same maybe level of problem as the overall student completion issue, but that is also a problem, and one that Oregon is interested in solving. How would this model help students understand that just because they may have a less than absolute love for math, that perhaps there are options in the STEM fields that they would never normally gravitate toward?
I think by showing helping students, I mean, what do we do now? We do it by default and sort students out in these ways, and low-income students hardly ever get into those. If you're not taking in 9th grade the right math, rigorous math and science, and it's another question about whether poor schools are offering those, your chances of being in STEM, I'm sorry, we know from the numbers, are very slim. So this is about envisioning sexy people in CSI, in accounting, in biotech, and showing them what you got to take. Not lowering the standards, but doing, I think for one thing, one maybe principle in this is high expectations, but also realistic, being real for students about what you got to take. If you want to go to University of Oregon in STEM, you can't just be taking this math, you got to be taking higher level math. You have to be taking advanced science. So if that's the goal, then we can actually work more as a community. And if the maps are in the hands of parents and school board members and foundation people and employers, and they know the maps, like it's happening in I mentioned the Broward case, but in Florida International, they have their local economic development agency identified 7 growth occupations like logistics that are very high-paying, high-tech jobs in Miami area, and they're not hiring from Miami. They're hiring from other parts of the United States and the world. And so they went to the universities and the community colleges and the schools saying, we got to build a pipeline here. The same is true in Eugene and other parts of the state. We got to build a pipeline. In rural areas, and this is harsh, and they're having these conversations nationally. I do a lot of work in Tennessee and Kentucky and like. We have to build a pipeline to help students, some of our students, get out of here so that they can send money back and come in. This is harsh, but this is the reality in rural schools. But right now, students don't have a clue. And yeah, we want to get them into STEM. Now, will it get more students in STEM? I don't know, but I think it will better enable students to see what the path is, to see the expectations, and to begin to associate with other, to network with other students who are interested but don't know nothing, with faculty, with employers, with university folks. That's the theory. I don't know if it'll work, but that's what we're saying. Yeah.
Hi, I'm from Portland Community
Hey.
College. Very quick question for you. Where do the liberal arts fit in? Because in all the examples you were showing,
Yeah, we need.
question is, where do the liberal arts fit in?
Right.
For community colleges, because all the examples showed career-focused, thank you, showed career-focused clusters.
Yeah.
And,
Actually,
ASU included, this one kind of cluster having specifically to do with the humanities, but
Right.
most of us are committed to the concept of general education and liberal arts. It's not just being lip service towards building better citizens. We actually believe it.
Yeah.
And so how does that fit
do
in
too.
if you're a community college and you have an idea that liberal arts is an important step toward creating a broadly educated person, and yet you realize that a more focused approach might benefit the student?
You're making the maps. You're the faculty. And even if all you cared about is employment, the research shows, and employers will say, that the liberal arts are critical. But what we're saying is the system that we have now, where students are cobbling together from these, Chinese menu kind of things, courses to fulfill distribution requirements, is not a coherent liberal arts education. And again, I'm not saying this all needs to be vocational. In fact, every one of those cases has arts and humanities streams. I didn't show them, but they have them, and social and behavioral sciences, and STEM. So they're in there. Yes, the gen ed faculty have this dual role of preparing some students to major in those fields, to pursue those fields, and then to provide the general education to students in every other field. So this is a really, this even increases the importance but I agree with you. If there were not, even in business, it were my college, I'm not a faculty member, but just based on what I would know, if there were not a strong liberal arts education that is not all vocational oriented, I wouldn't accept that with my colleagues, and I would fight for it, because we know that we're trying to educate people who are more broad. We're not just trying to train people for business. But I'm saying it's up to you guys to decide. Someone asked yesterday when I was in Bakersfield, what about the arts? I'm like, I would include the arts in this, but it has to be a negotiation with your colleagues. There's a lot of emphasis on narrowing the choices, you can have electives as part of this, but they have to be electives that make educational sense. And so what we're talking about is creating a coherent curriculum, and you guys decide whether or not the liberal arts are important in this curriculum. Faculty, the students are looking to you. I'm not going to tell you, because I'm not a teacher. You guys figure out how to do that. So I'm saying it's up to you guys. And I'm voting for the liberal arts.
Davis, right here.
Yeah. I would tell students who go to the liberal arts, like I do, that you'll probably have to go to graduate school for a job, which is great. And employers love liberal arts. I mean, Google's hiring arts majors and the like. So again, yeah.
Hi, I'm Sarah Lucia, and I'm from Lane. There's a lot of emphasis in what you presented today on students not knowing, students not having a clue. I don't disagree that they need a lot of advisement and counseling, but particularly given the reality of the limited resources and the vast wealth of knowledge that the students I work with do come to college with.
Yeah.
I'm interested to know how you suggest that we build support groups among students to take the knowledge that they do have, to make them feel like this isn't bureaucratic top-down.
Yeah.
They're actually engaged in part of building this system, and create peer networks or peer communities within the colleges as part of this system.
Right. So actually, my colleague Melinda Karp should probably be here to say, I told you so. Actually, most students do have an idea of what they, some sense of what they might be interested in. But I'm telling you, we've interviewed a lot of them and came in clinic. They don't know how to get there, number one. But I don't think that's what you were asking. These exploratory majors. So Queensborough Community College, I didn't show that, in 2009, took a very organic approach to this, requiring all full-time students to be in one of 5 academies, one of which was arts and humanities, by the way, and the other was performing arts, because they have strong performing arts. And they've interviewed, and I'll hook you up with the researchers, they surveyed the heck out of students and faculty, and students were saying things like, in this commuter institution, I'm with other students who have expressed an interest in this. And the faculty in the liberal arts put on plays, and they bring in poets, and they have extracurricular activities. But, because it's a commuter school, it's going to be, and the pre-nursing students are saying in the past we were just dumped in with the other gen ed students. We didn't know who the other pre-nursing students are because we go to classes, we don't know, So it's creating that community, which I was trying to say, obviously I wasn't very eloquent, of network among students as well as faculty, advisors, and others who are interested. Miami-Dade calls their exploratory majors communities of interest for precisely that reason. And the goal is to create not this bureaucratic, paths, but a culture, and so students can say, are these the kind of people I want to hang with? And am I good at this?
Davis, right
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, my name is Dennis Gilbert, and I teach in the STEM area, physics. And I think it's a misconception that somehow we have to do something really extra in community colleges to create more STEM interest. The President's Commission came out with a study a few years ago saying that the pipeline leaks most, and by far most, in the first 2 years of college. That's right. And so the interest is there. Yeah. It is just not getting encouraged, and it's being destroyed in the first 2 years of college. Yeah. And that's where that problem is. Exactly. I want to just say I appreciate the systemic approach that you're taking, and I would just encourage all of colleagues here to that's where the value is in this systemic approach. Yeah. The fact is that the kind of cafeteria model, where it exists and how it exists, is largely bureaucratic. Okay? That's right. And this is not, this isn't necessarily trading one bureaucratic model for another bureaucratic model.
And if it is, it ain't going to work.
Yes, that's very important. Yeah. And if it isn't faculty-led, there's great evidence that it won't work. That's right. And so when we think about advising, we ought to think about the process of advising and not think about advisors or something that we do that's disconnected from the four-year institutions or any other thing. It's these processes we have to really talk about. Yeah. I would suggest that a useful thing to do, just like when we sometimes look at the hidden curriculum, we need to talk about the hidden advising that goes on. Okay? The fact is that faculty members, I being one of them, just earlier in the week, we took a tour of physics majors, almost 10 of them, to the U of O to talk to people and introduce them around and use our contacts with those people. That kind of stuff goes on all the time. When we talk about this is really a change in the lives of people to go to college. Yeah. This is a social transformation. Let's own it as a social transformation. And if it is, client-based resources are often not the best thing. There needs to be maybe a different model entirely of advising, and this is not black and white that advisors should go, anything like that, but there should be things like that. So I'm just struck by the productivity in this conversation is to talk at a process and at a process level.
Right, and a process for dialogue and developing these relationships among faculty. I know we got to quit.
Absolutely.
Are you sure you said physicist? You sound like a sociologist.
So
I couldn't have said it better than that.
we have time for one more question in this round. So Russ, are you?
Yeah.
What he said, by the way. How he said it.
Over here to your left.
Yeah.
James Fritz from Southwestern Oregon Community College. I've just been struck by the evolution of the metaphor over time. When I kind of got into this, we were talking about liberal arts education, and that led to helping students navigate the college, which has led to this age of exploration with pathway metaphors. And it becomes more and more granularized so that we're getting to the point where we're leading with breadcrumbs, a path of breadcrumbs just about, which is nothing wrong with that. It's just, it's interesting that we're getting more and more specific as we go with the metaphor.
Yeah. Stairway to Heaven, right? That was the greatest. Ultimately, what you want to get to is these conversations about, taking the step back, and with advisors and faculty and everyone in the room saying, what are the paths we want to get students on, and especially these key lower, freshman, sophomore years, to get them on. And you guys are going to have those conversations. If this is imposed bureaucratically, it ain't going to work. Thank you for your time and for all you do.